you've been white knuckling your way through adulting with ADHD, burnout, or just too many browser tabs open in your brain, I've got you. Let's hop on a free discovery call where we'll talk ADHD, purpose, and how to stop feeling like a walking to-do list. No weird sales pitches, just real talk. Fierce kindness. Book it now at youradhdguy.com. That's youradhdguy.com. Your future self will high five you for it. Yeah. Welcome to Don't Mind Me, I Just Have ADHD, the podcast where fierce kindness meets the unfiltered truth. A one-stop shop about all things ADHD, where we smash the stigma and mystery around ADHD, depression, and the masks we wear at work and in life. I'm Ron, your ADHD guy, your guide, and your reminder that being different isn't a flaw. It's a biological advantage, a signal that you were never meant to blend in. You were built to make a difference. Here, we face the struggles that no one seems to get with heart. We unpack the chaos. We build strength through our sensitivity. We turn pain into power. Because kindness isn't weak. It's a revolution. And every time you show up for yourself, that's you taking your life back. So let's make it cool to be different. Let's make it brave. Let's make it yours. Welcome to the start of a new mini-series where we dig deep beneath the labels, beyond the surface symptoms, to explore how we became who we are. We're going to look at ADHD through a lens you don't often hear about. How the environments we grew up in, the relationships that shaped us, and the systems we live in today quietly and often invisibly keep making the problems worse instead of better. Because let's be real, most of us didn't wake up one day with ADHD. Our sensitivity was there from the start, but stress in our earliest environments altered how our brains developed. And now, the very systems that are supposed to help us, schools, workplaces, even healthcare, often measure us by standards we were never wired for or even meant to live up to, reinforcing shame instead of understanding. In today's episode, The Original Wound, When Love Felt Conditional, we'll explore how sensitivity in the womb and parental stress can shape brain circuits tied to focus, time awareness, and emotional regulation. Why Dr. Gabor Maté says trauma isn't what happens to us, but what happens inside of us. And how the shame of being called too much or not enough can fuel people-pleasing, perfectionism, and self-blame for decades. This isn't about blaming our parents or ourselves. It's about finally telling the truth of our story so we can rewrite it. And if you ever felt like your struggles were personal failings, my hope is that this series helps you see they were never proof of you being broken. They were proof of being human. Stick around, share this episode with someone who needs to hear it, and join the conversation online. Because the work of reclaiming our authentic selves starts with understanding how we got here and believing we deserve something better. Many adults with ADHD grew up believing their struggles were personal failures, when in reality, they were shaped by early life environments that disrupted emotional and neurological development. From the womb to our first relationships, heightened sensitivity, and exposure to the stress that our parents were experiencing altered the formation of our brain circuits tied to focus, time, awareness, and emotional regulation. By reframing ADHD through the lens of early attachment, trauma, and neural development, drawing on the work of Dr. Gabor Maté, we can replace shame with understanding and begin reclaiming our authentic selves. You Can't Sit Still felt more cutting than curious. That question wasn't just about impulse, it was the soundtrack of conditional love. So unpacking the original wound. Sensitivity before birth. Dr. Maté reframes ADHD not as an inherited disease, but as a reversible developmental delay rooted in early stress environments, beginning as early as infancy or even before birth. These environments disrupt wiring and circuits essential for focus, emotional regulation, and time awareness because they get disrupted at key points in their growth. So, what happens when a sensitive brain encounters stress before it's ready to handle it? Now, before I go into that, like, I want to talk about some of the trauma that I've dealt with in my life. You know, talking about when I was first born, I remember often being told the story of how my umbilical cord was wrapped around my neck. And my mom was extremely stressed out in the moment that, she might lose her firstborn. And, there was always jokes about, yeah, that's probably why the way you are today. And, you know, but it was always taken lightly. But in with this evidence here, it really does make sense, like why my brain developed in the way that it did from an early stage, from that trauma that happened at birth, from not being able to breathe, from what should have been, at least a much more pleasant experience became a life-threatening situation. So, and I know I'm not the only one, but this type of trauma happens when it happens to people that are sensitive, because I find myself and claim myself as a sensitive person. Like, I used to try to be tough. I used to try to ignore that or try to be hard. And it was exhausting. Like, I thought I was a gangster, with no, like, and when I was able to finally start to see that and start to relax and just be who I am, like, I just, it felt like a weight lifted off. Like I didn't have to try so hard to be somebody that nobody really liked to begin with, including myself. So if I can't like myself, how can others like me? And the other bit of trauma that I've talked about before is when I was in second grade and I wanted to have friends. So I thought standing up on top of the desk and making a scene was going to do that. But it ended up backfiring. And the teacher took me to the front of the class. And all the students, they may have not made fun of me, but I felt it because of that sensitivity. I felt it so much that I literally cannot remember that event. The only reason why I know about that happening is my mom told me. And it makes sense because, like, it was so traumatic that my brain pretty much erased the whole memory to protect me from that, like identity shifting trauma that happens to a lot of us at an early age when we act different, when we show up with sensitivity as a young child. And, especially growing up in the era that I did, where you don't show your emotions, you don't cry, you got to act tough. This is huge, because I felt at that time, and I told my mother that I wanted to disappear and or be invisible so that the world couldn't see me because I didn't feel like I deserved love. And that's the moment that love became conditional for me. So what happens? Parental stress and brain development. Stress in caregivers per Dr. Maté and neurodevelopmental science can affect how a child's brain organizes. He invites us to take a look at lives, not just genetics, to truly understand ADHD. It's not about looking at the DNA. It's about actually looking at the lives of these people, because that's where you can find the true understanding of what's going on. When infants pick up parental stress, their emotional circuits shift, sometimes causing imbalances in focus, regulation, and timing. This isn't pathology. It's an adaptation in a world that wasn't built for sensitive wiring. So trauma, both big and small. Trauma is an invisible force that shapes our lives. It shapes the way we live, the way we love, and the way we make sense of the world. It is the root of our deepest wounds. And a lot of us, and that's a quote from Dr. Maté, and most of us, including myself, don't see those wounds as displaying in our current life. Like until I did the work on myself, like I didn't think that those things from my childhood had an impact on who I was because they happened so long ago. But to be honest, when I've done the exploring and like I shared in the story before, like it has made so much sense. It has put so many pieces into the puzzle. And there are still pieces missing. But that trauma lives inside of us. Maté reframes trauma as what happens inside of us in response to events, not just the events themselves. In early life, even small t traumas like emotional neglect or unmet needs have lasting impact. That voice, too much, not enough, starts early when needing closeness becomes a source of shame or fear of rejection. Like I can remember, another event where I was a little bit older and I had a babysitter and I wanted to hold his hand and he had such a negative reaction to that, pulling his hand away and I felt a deep sense of shame. And all I was looking for was the love that I couldn't get, that I wanted so badly from my father, who couldn't give it himself and didn't know how to do that. So it's from the trauma that he went through. So we're talking about generational trauma, and we'll get more into that in the next episode. So evidence and expert insight. Using scattered minds and his broader work, Dr. Maté argues ADHD is a developmental delay grounded in lived experience, stories that give us hope, not more shame. Love felt conditional. Over time, That shaped how we saw ourselves and how our brains learned to cope. So, before we go on, I just want to make this absolutely clear. This isn't about blaming parents or rewriting the past. It's about giving voice to a wound or wounds we carry without even realizing it, and offering clarity where there was only confusion. So, now here's some practical ways to explore and understand this now. I have a bunch of them and they'll be in the show notes if you guys want to take a look and you can't remember. I know you guys have ADHD, so I'm only going to go through like three or four. So, one of the best things you can do is journal your early memories. Write down the moments in childhood when you felt too much or not enough. Note what was happening, who was there, and how your body felt in the moments. Look for patterns in the way you were responded to, where your needs met with understanding, frustration, or silence. I know this was difficult for me, so I had to actually talk to my mom, get a report of like how she grew up, what it was like for her to grow up, what it was like for my father to grow up, what it was like for me and my sister growing up, for both her and me from her perspective, so that I could that really opened up like a whole understanding of not only me but my relationship with my mom and my dad, and what type of stress they were going through in that time. And then you can create a stress timeline, map life from the womb onward. Yes, start before birth. If you know your mother's stress or circumstances during pregnancy, ask these questions. If you don't know, mark major stressors like moves, losses, like people in your life, relationships, death, job losses, illnesses, parental stress, school challenges. This helps you visualize how chronic stress shapes your nervous system. And then you can practice inner child check ins. So once a day, pause and ask, what would my 7 year old self need to hear right now? And to kind of give you further evidence, and I know those of you that are just listening can't see this, but like, here's my phone. Like, it literally has a picture of me when I was younger to remind me of why I'm doing this work, why, who I'm really connected to. I'm here for my 7 year old version of myself that wasn't given the love, wasn't given the understanding, and wasn't given the complete support that he needed and I needed so that we can help grow our each other. I know it sounds silly, but it's really powerful. So speak it out loud or write it down. This is a gentle way of building the self compassion those early environments may have lacked. It's never too late to heal. It's never too late to explore these things and give yourself the love, the unconditional love that you deserve and need. And finally, you can read Dr. Gabor Mate's Scattered Minds. This book is amazing. Focus especially on the sections about sensitivity in infancy, parental stress, and how ADHD is not a character flaw, but a developmental adaptation. It's simply a different operating system. And you've got more, like, some of the parts of your brain are actually more developed than others, especially the sensitivity. So take notes on anything that feels like it's describing you. Always write something down. Everything, no matter how small, could be super important. That's what I've found in my life. And I hope that you find it in yours as well. So this is about moving towards healing. If you've been carrying the belief that your struggles are proof that you're broken, I hope today cracked that story open for you. ADHD isn't a personal failing. It's a reflection of how a sensitive brain adapted to its earliest environment. From the stress you may have absorbed in the womb to the moments in childhood when love felt conditional. These experiences shaped your wiring, but wiring can be understood. And when it's understood, it can be worked with, not fought against. This episode is just the first in our mini series on how we became who we are. In the weeks ahead, we'll go deeper, like in our next episode, where we'll dive deeper into what trauma really is and how it still shows up in emotional dysregulation and its roots in early invalidation, the science and soul of time blindness and its developmental origins, and most importantly, how healing happens when we stop trying to fix ourselves and start understanding our wiring, our emotions with compassion. So for now, I just want you to take one thing we talked about today, whether it's journaling early memories, mapping your stress time, or checking in with your inner child, and actually try it for a week, not to fix yourself, but to meet yourself. And if it doesn't work out, you can always stop doing it. But if it really works, and if this conversation resonated, share it with one person you know who might need to hear it. Tag me at ron.solo1 on TikTok. I'd love for you to keep that energy going. Join me live on TikTok for the Kindness Circle. It's where we take these conversations off the podcast and into real life. We hang out, swap stories, and share simple ways to make the world a little kinder, starting with ourselves. You don't have to be perfect. You just be yourself. Look for at your ADHD guy on TikTok and come say hi. I'll save you a seat in the circle. That's on Saturdays at 8 or 9 p.m. Eastern time. And if you're sitting there thinking, I'm ready for more than just listening, I'm ready for something real, I'm ready to change, then let's talk one-on-one. My free discovery call isn't about a sales pitch. It's about you. We'll look at where you are, what's been holding you back, and the shifts that could change everything. Whether we work together or not, you'll leave with practical next steps you can use right away. You deserve to feel comfortable in your own skin, to feel enough, and know exactly where you're headed. Book your free discovery call today at youradhdguy.com and let's get started. And if you really want an in-depth self-discovery journal, I'm offering that for free on the top of my website. Just click on that and you'll get a digital copy. Just know that you're not too much. You're not enough. You are at exactly who you were always meant to be. And you get to start writing the next chapter today. I'll see you on the next episode. And as always, subscribe and may the source be with you.